Okay, so you have $500,000 saved, you're so excited, and you should be. Congratulations to you, that was awesome, way to go.
Congratulations.
Nice. The question is, what do you do it to create passive income, right? Like, how do you invest that money? Now, I'm gonna give you some strategies here. Now, big disclaimer, right? I'm not giving you investment advice. I'm just giving you a good basic type of options here that you can look at. But again, this is not to be construed as investment advice because I'm not an investment advisor, nor do I ever wanna be. But this is some experience that I've had for myself, but also I know that many of our clients have had as well. And I think this kind of gives you a nice, good framework what you want to do here.
Helping you gives us a fighting chance.
Now, I'm going to help you learn the difference between how you invest. You can invest between different turnkeys and funds and things like that, but how do you diversify between that? How do you make it work? Well, diversification, when you have $500,000, becomes important. If you've got less, there's not as much to diversify with, but this is where we really start to look at diversification. So when I look at the alternative investment space, I'm not a big fan of investing in paper assets, specifically like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, the typical stuff that a financial advisor will offer you. I'm not a fan of those at all. I think you can make so much better returns with less risk investing in these kind of alternative investments. So the first kind of investment you can look at are turnkey rentals. I mentioned turnkey rentals because there's a difference between rentals and turnkey rentals. Rentals are the ones that usually you go and buy in your own backyard and then you're the property manager and you deal with all the headaches, the tenants, the toilets, and the trash. For turnkey rentals, you don't deal with that stuff. You actually have a turnkey company that helps you find those properties in certain areas. And it could be all the way across the country and somewhere different where the cash flow is much better than in your backyard. I'm speaking of this from being on the western half of the United States. Everything out here is pretty much stinks, right? But in the Midwest or Southeast, so there's some much better opportunities out there. So you can buy turnkey rentals where they'll help you find the property. You don't have to go hunting for them. You basically get to pick and choose, almost like you're looking at a buffet, and say, well, which one do I want? Which one looks good? I like that one, that return. I like that property. It looks nicer than this other one. And you pick between those turnkey properties, and then from there, they help you get the financing for it if you need financing, and they hook you up with a property manager. So you don't even have to do all the active investing with it. The property manager does all the work. They deal with the tenants, the toilets, and the trash, and you get the profit. You get paid that. Now you still have to manage the turnkey property manager, but you're not the one having to deal with the day in, day out stuff. If you're lucky, you might have to deal with something once a month, right? And that's it. Other than that, usually it's just getting the checks. So turnkey rentals, I think you should definitely have that in your portfolio because that's one of the lower risk yet higher returning type of investments that you could have. Now there's also lending. You can do things, whether it's short-term lending and or longer-term lending, you can actually lend your money out to other investors. So they're going and they're doing all the active stuff. You're not doing anything on the active standpoint. They're taking that money. Maybe they're using it to buy a property, to renovate, and then turn around and sell it later for a high profit. Well, they might pay you anywhere from sometimes as low as 6, 7%, but sometimes even as high as 10, 12, 15%. And so there's lending that you can do, and then it's contractual. So if they don't deliver on it, you own the property. You can take it over just like a bank takes it over having a mortgage. You become almost like the bank in this sense, very literally. Now, if you don't want to just invest in one property, you can also go into funds. Funds actually allow you to go into multiple deals. It might be multiple properties. It might be multiple investors. Like if they're doing that kind of lending, but you're lending to more than one person, so you kind of spread your risk out a little bit better, right? So there's things like that. There's syndications. Syndication is where you pool money with other investors, much like a fund, but the difference is where a fund usually is just based on paying you a return, sometimes even a contractual return. Syndications mean you share the profits, you share the equity. So for example, I have a partnership where I'm actually having somebody go and buying and transacting, buying raw land. And they're buying the raw land and helping to sell it to somebody else, either for a profit or they sell it on terms, and I get paid cash flow on that. So I don't do any of the active investing, but my partners, they do the work. So they're the ones doing all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of fun to do that way. Sometimes the people do it in real estate investing and different aspects too. It might be a development type of deal where you're going as a partnership and then again, split the profits. So many different ways you can go. Now, if you have 500,000, like how would you do this? Now, again, I'm not giving investment advice, right? I'm just giving an example of what you could be doing. So if you want to allocate this, you might say, all right, I've got 500,000. Let's allocate $200,000 towards those turnkey rental properties. That's $200,000. You could be buying those properties outright, or you could get financing. And that $200,000, let's just say that's 20% down. That really means you're buying $1 million worth of real estate property with $200,000, and then you're leveraging that cash. And heck, ideally, and even if you don't focus on appreciation, if you're getting paid at least $15,000 to $20,000 a year, that's pretty good in a turnkey rental space right now. If you can make at least $15,000 to $20,000 a year profit from that $200,000, that's good. Heck, that's even good if the stock market would even pay you that much, which they usually don't. right? So anyways, that's a great way to do it. Oh, and here's a key thing too. One thing with the turnkey rentals, they actually have a little bit extra tax advantages too. So you actually pay less on taxes than you will for some of these other strategies. So if you're really sensitive to taxes, this could be something you might adjust that and do more than 200,000 out of that 500,000. Just depends. Now, 300,000, the remaining 300,000, that can be split in between different places, between those funds or those syndications. Now, I would say this is no more than 20% into each syndication. That means if you have $500,000, don't put any more than $100,000 into a syndication or a single fund. I used to be a little bit more bullish, I guess you could say, on this case. I used to be more flexible on this, but as I've started to see things happen, and we know we're kind of moving into recession right now, you want to just be a little bit safer, just in case, right? So that's why I say no more than 20% into each syndication or a single fund. This is just a general rule I have for myself. Doesn't mean that has to be for you, but that just means I spread the risk more. So if I have 300,000 still left to invest because I have 200,000 of those turnkey properties, I might put 100,000 into a fund that maybe diversifies and invests in several different projects, or into different investors that are doing their flipping or renovating and things like that. I might take some of that and go into a syndication. Like I know some of our clients like to go into some oil and gas stuff. So they kind of diversify outside of just typical real estate, and they go into oil and gas where they might get paid on the real estate and they get paid on the drilling from the profits made from the royalties and things like that. So there's a lot of different ways you can do. But again, I would just definitely say that in this case, no more than 20%. That means you might be doing no more than about 3 to 5 investments with that 300,000. And so that's a great way to diversify and make sure that you're protecting your cash. Now, the other thing you do too is that, right now Warren Buffett, he's known for holding more and more cash. In fact, over 20% of his portfolio is in cash right now. I think there's some great opportunities coming up, even better than the ones today. I'm not saying I don't invest today. I still keep investing my money for now, but I'm also building up extra cash. I'm not reinvesting every dollar. I'm building up more and more cash. And what I'm using personally is using my infinite banking policies to do that. Now, if you haven't heard of infinite banking, that's using whole life insurance, which is more than just death insurance. They have a tax-free savings account inside of it. So I can store money in there, earn a lot more than 0.nothing% like I get paid at the bank, but it's also tax-free. So it allows me to hold cash, earn better returns, tax-free, and I can still use that money to invest however I want. So I'm right now building up more and more cash inside my infinite banking policies rather than just investing everything I have, which I know some people out there are teaching you, take all that money and invest it right away. No, I don't think you need to. And so what I'm doing right now is I'm keeping money in cash. And this might be you too. Maybe that 500,000 beyond your emergency fund, by the way. Don't invest your emergency fund in this 500,000. That stays safe. But I would diversify your emergency fund into some of this, like infinite banking. And maybe you don't want to invest all 500,000. Maybe you feel comfortable investing 300 or 400,000 of that money, and then the rest you hold in cash. So that could be a great way to hold cash and not be stuck. You can even do things like T-bills, like short-term T-bills, which are kind of good, especially with the way the rates are going right now. That might not be a bad place to look as well. But infinite banking, I like it because I get tax-free. It gets gross tax-free. I don't have to worry about anything with taxes that way, and I still make guaranteed returns. So that's what I'd say, guys. Definitely diversification is the key here, but you can diversify between so many different things within the real estate asset class and then some. So if you like this video, I want you to check out this next one, which is what is the difference between passive and active income?